The wind came off the desert like it had a blade in it, scraping grit along the main street of Dry Creek and rattling the warped panes of the jail. Jonah Hale stood just inside, hat in his hands, listening to the town argue over the boy in the cell. The boy's name was Rafe Vega. 17th, maybe, with dust in his dark hair and irons on his wrists. His shirt was stiff with dried blood where the bullet had gone through his shoulder. Jonah had dug that slug out himself an hour ago, fingers working out of habit while his mind circled the same hard truth. The town didn't want a patient. It wanted a hanging. "String him up," Ezra Caldwell said. The cattleman's voice scraped as rough as the wind. "Do it before Cole Banner swings back around for him. Make an example before we all end up like that payroll wagon." The narrow office was packed wall to wall. Ranch hands with sunburnt necks, a blacksmith with soot still on his forearms, the town preacher with his collar askew and eyes burning too bright. Sheriff Royce leaned against his desk, jaw working while the men pushed in closer. "We'll wait for the marshal," Royce said. "Circuit judge, too, if the telegraph's still standing." "Law's 3 days out," Caldwell cut in. "Banner ain't. You saw what he did in that ravine." Jonah had. Every time Caldwell said it, the picture came back sharper. The wagon on its side, the strongbox blasted open and empty, 6 railroad men sprawled in the dust where they'd fallen. Heat had already stiffened them by the time Jonah rode in with Royce. Flies had found the blood. The only thing still moving was the horse that had gone down under the boy in the cell. Rafe Vega had been pinned beneath the dead animal, shoulder hold, breathing shallow. Jonah could have left him there. Some of the men had wanted that. "You patch him, you just fix him enough to hang him," one ranch hand had muttered, while Jonah cut away the bloody shirt. Maybe. But the wind had been blowing dust into the boy's open eyes, and there'd been a rope swinging from a cottonwood nearby, empty, swaying like it was waiting. Jonah had seen enough wounded men on battlefields back east to know the difference between mercy and butchery. Or he hoped he still did. "Not like this," he'd said then. "We don't leave men to bleed out in a ditch, not while I'm standing." So he'd knelt in the dirt, hands steady while Rafe clamped his teeth together so hard a vein stood out in his neck. He dug the bullet free, tied the bandage tight, and only after the bleeding slowed had he let the others haul the boy back to town and lock him up. Mercy first, justice after. That was the order that let a man sleep. Now, in the cramped heat of the jail, justice was all anyone wanted to talk about. "We saw what they did," Caldwell went on. "You gonna tell Tom Henley's girls we let one of the killers live? You gonna tell them we turned mob?" Jonah asked quietly. A murmur rolled through the room. Caldwell's face mottled. The preacher cleared his throat. "Scripture allows for the sword, Brother Hale," he said. "Eye for an eye. Blood for blood. Also says, 'Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord,'" Jonah replied. "Doesn't say a word about Ezra Caldwell's rope." A couple of the men tried not to smile. Caldwell glared. "Watch yourself." Jonah turned away from him to the cell. Through the bars, Rafe sat on the bunk, back against the wall, ankles crossed as if he were resting in some cheap hotel. Only the chain between his hands and the paleness around his mouth gave him away. The bandage on his shoulder had already bled through at the corner. He met Jonah's gaze and held it, hard and measuring. There was fear there, but it had teeth. Sheriff Royce stepped between Jonah and Caldwell. "Enough," he said. "Nobody gets hung tonight." I wired Fort Canfield soon as Jonah rode in. "Marshal ride down and take statement. Judge'll decide if he swings. We are the law in Dry Creek," Caldwell snapped. "No," Jonah said. "We just men." Law's the thing that keeps scared men from acting like animals. That sat badly, but nobody answered. Outside, the wind shouldered dust against the clapboard front, making the building creak. Royce glanced at Jonah. There were more lines around the sheriff's eyes than when Jonah had first pinned on the deputy's badge. "You sure Banner's gone south?" Royce asked. "You didn't see him doubling back? I saw a dust trail and empty ridges," Jonah said. "He lost his payroll on account of the boy here taking a bullet and dropping the satchel. He liked that job less and less the longer it went on. Man like Banner's got better things to do than circle the same town twice." Rafe's voice came flat from the cell. "You don't know Cole Banner?" The room stilled. Jonah looked at him. "You figure you do." Rafe eased his back against the wall, tested the cuff on his wrist. "You cost him more than money dragging me in," he said. "You cost him a witness." "How's that?" Caldwell asked. "He's short a trigger hand, that all. He's short the boy who helped scout the trestle at Sable Draw," Rafe said. "Short the one who stole dynamite out of the Santa Rosa mine. Railroad sending troops west next week. Cole aims to make his point before they get here." The preacher paled. "What kind of point?" "The kind you write about in history books," Rafe said. "Blow the trestle while the troop trains on it. Send 100 uniforms into the ravine." A low curse rippled through the crowd. Royce swore aloud. Caldwell's jaw clenched so hard a muscle jumped. "How we know you ain't lying?" Caldwell demanded. "Trying to spook us into cutting you loose. If I wanted free, I'd have kept my mouth shut," Rafe said. "Easier to let you find out when the ground starts shaking." Jonah felt a cold place open under his ribs. He'd seen bridges fallen in the war. "You never forgot the sound." "Marshall still needs to hear him," Jonah said. "Railroad too. If there's even a chance." Caldwell stabbed a finger at the cell. "You keep that boy alive, you paint a target on Dry Creek," he growled. "Banner comes. He'll hit this town like a storm. You're gambling our lives on one outlaw's word." Jonah didn't answer that, because there was no answer that would do anything but add more kindling. Royce finally snapped and ordered the men out. They trickled away, muttering. Caldwell paused in the doorway. "You're making a mistake, Hale," he said without looking back. "Men like that don't change." The door banged shut behind him. Silence fell. Jonah let out a breath he hadn't noticed he'd been holding. "Marshall really gonna stop him?" Rafe asked. "I think the marshal needs to know where to look," Jonah said. "Sable draws off the main line. They won't be watching that trestle unless someone tells him to." Rafe studied him. "Should Vive let me bleed out?" he said. "Would ve saved you the trouble?" Jonah leaned on the bars, feeling the chill of iron through his shirt. "I've seen enough men die in the dirt for one lifetime," he said. "Badge doesn't mean much if I pick and choose who counts as a man." Rafe's gaze flicked away. For the first time, Jonah caught a glimpse of the kid under the outlaw's armor. "Line's hard to see some days," Rafe muttered. "Yeah," Jonah said. "It is." The attempt to settle things without a judge came just after midnight. Jonah was dozing in the chair by the desk, hat down over his eyes, when the front step creaked. The sound threaded into whatever he was dreaming and yanked him awake. He didn't move. Just listened. Another creak. Then the faint scrape of metal in the lock. He slid his hand to his revolver and stood, moving quietly into the corner where the lamplight didn't reach. Through the warped glass of the front window, he saw 3 shapes on the porch. One at the door, 2 flanking. Ranch hats. Stiff shoulders. Caldwell was in the middle. The preacher hovered behind him, white collar a pale smudge. Rope gleamed in Caldwell's fist. The lock, turned with a soft click. The door eased inward, desert night breathing through the gap. "That's far enough," Jonah said. They froze. Caldwell recovered first. "Move aside, Hale," he said. "We're just taking care of what needs doing before Banner rides back." "What needs doing," Jonah said, "is waiting for the man with a federal badge who knows the difference between a trial and a lynching." "Federal badge ain't gonna stop Cole Banner," Caldwell snapped. "Hang his pup now, maybe Banner thinks twice." "You really believe that?" Jonah asked. "You think a rope tonight stops dynamite under a trestle next week?" The preacher's voice shook. "Men are scared, Jonah. They ain't half as scared as them soldiers will be once the ground drops out from under 'em." Jonah replied, "Only thing standing between Banner and that trestle is the boy in that cell, and whatever we do next. You kill him now. You kill our only chance at stopping it." Caldwell hesitated. Rope creaked in his fist. The preacher swallowed. "This feels wrong," the preacher said quietly. "Dark and wrong. Wrong would be letting that train roll blind," Jonah said. He stepped closer to the doorway. "You walk through me tonight, Ezra. You better be ready to explain to every widow between here and Kansas City why you chose the easy fear over the hard right." Anger and uncertainty warred in Caldwell's face. At last he spat in the dust. "You'll regret this," he said. "When Banner comes, don't say I didn't warn you." They left, door closing with a hollow thud. Jonah stood listening until the porch boards quit complaining. Only then did he sit again. Behind him, chain clinked softly. "You really that stupid?" Rafe asked. "Some say so," Jonah said. "You could have let him," Rafe went on. "Stood aside, told yourself you tried. Banner would have done worse for less. Maybe," Jonah said. "But then I'd have to live with the man who watched." Rafe didn't answer that. After a while, his breathing evened out. Jonah sat awake and watched the door until dawn painted a pale line under it. The marshal's reply arrived with that weak dawn light. Royce came in with dust on his boots and a yellow paper in his hand. "Canfield's tied up with trouble," the sheriff said. "Marshal can't ride for at least 4 days. Told us to hold the prisoner and sit tight." 4 days, Jonah said. "Train's due before that," Royce grimaced. "Railroad office wired too. They want to lay federal troops, on the word of one outlaw boy. So that's it." Rafe asked from the bunk, "You just hope Cole changes his mind." Jonah looked at the sheriff. "What if we don't sit tight?" he asked. Royce gave him a long look. "I knew you were going to say that," he said. "Hardy that I knew it. We ride to Sable Draw," Jonah said. "May, and him," he jerked his chin toward the cell. "If he's lying, we find out. If he's not, maybe we cut the fuse before the train ever sees that bridge." Royce stared like he'd sprouted horns. "You want to haul a half-healed outlaw straight into Banner's teeth? That's not a plan. That's suicide." "Banner doesn't know he talked," Jonah said. "He won't be looking for us. He'll be looking east for smoke." Rafe sat forward, chains clinking. "What's in it for me?" he asked. "You take me out there, I can ride for Mexico, and you got nothing." "You won't," Jonah said. Rafe snorted. "You got a high opinion of yourself, lawman." "I got eyes," Jonah said. "You already tipped the scales when you told us about the trestle. Some part of you's tired of watching men die for Banner's grudges." "I'm putting that part to work." Rafe stared at him a long moment, jaw tight. "You drag me out there," he said, "and Cole sees me with you. We're both dead." "Maybe," Jonah said. "But if we sit in this jail, a whole trainload of men might be." Royce rubbed at his temples. You always were mule stubborn, he said. All right. I'll ride north and try to flag that train if you're not back by sundown. You head west. But, Jonah, his voice roughened. You get a choice between playing hero and staying alive. You pick living, you hear? Jonah didn't answer that. He just took the keys and opened the cell. The shackles came off with a clink. Rafe flexed his fingers slowly, as if unsure they still worked. Don't mistake this for trust, Jonah said. You try for my horse, I'll knock you cold and drag you. Rafe's mouth twitched. Wouldn't dream of it, he said, and they both knew he might. They rode out under a sun already too bright, Dry Creek shrinking behind them into a blur of false fronts and telegraph poles. Royce Best Bay carried Jonah. Rafe sat Jonas Rangi Sorrel, posture stiff, shoulder bandaged tight under his shirt. For the first hour they rode in silence. The land rolled out in waves of sage and stone. The shine of the railroad line cut the horizon like a knife. How long you ride with Banner? Jonah asked at last. Long enough, Rafe said. How'd a kid like you fall in with him? Rafe's jaw worked. My uncle freighted for the army, he said. Banner hid us outside Las Cruces. Took the mules, took the goods, put my uncle in the ground. I was left standing with a rifle and no one to point it for me. Cole did. Seems he pointed it at a lot of wrong folks, Jonah said. Rafe's gaze went flat. Army never shot nobody innocent, he asked. Railroad never pushed homesteads off their land? Only difference with Cole is he doesn't pretend. Maybe that's what hooked you, Jonah said. Honest cruelty's still cruelty, though. Rafe didn't answer. But when he spoke again, his voice was quieter. He talks about uniforms like they're cattle, he said. Just numbers. Sable draw. He was almost happy talking about it. Like it was clever. You didn't like how that felt, Jonah said. Rafe's hands tightened on the reins. He didn't deny it. The land grew harsher as the sun climbed. Ground broke into gullies and low ridges. Heat shimmered above the rock. By mid-afternoon, the trestle came into view, a dark, spidery shape striding over a pale cut in the earth. Dynamit'll be set under the far supports, Rafe said. He'll have men on the slopes and in the rocks. Where's he camp? Jonah asked. Spring a mile north, Rafe said. Rock walls, cottonwoods. He'll sit there till close to time, then move in. Jonah riding in under the scrubby shade of a juniper. His side ached from the long ride. The bay blew briefly, flanks heaving. You could turn back, Rafe said abruptly. Tell yourself you rode far enough. And leave you to run, Jonah asked. Rafe gave a mirthless huff. Maybe I would, he said. Maybe I'd ride till the border and never look back. You wouldn't, Jonah said. You told us about that trestle knowing they could hang you faster for it. You ain't got it in you to leave 100 men to drop just to save your own skin. Rafe looked away toward the bridge. The lines of his face were too hard for his age. I rode with him, he said. I stole that dynamite. That's on me. If I ride away now and that train goes in, that's on me too. Then we finish it, Jonah said. But we don't finish it together, Rafe frowned. What? You take the bay and cut north along that ridge, Jonah said. You get above the line. You flag that train down any way you can. Shoot in the air, wave your shirt, throw yourself on the tracks if you have to. They ain't stopping a troop train for some half-grown outlaw yelling in the rocks, Rafe said. You'd be surprised what a jumpy engineer in Apache country'll stop for, Jonah said. You tell EM there's dynamite under the trestle, they'll at least slow. I go to the spring and see if I can talk Banner off this before the rails ever hum. Rafe stared at him like he'd gone crazy. You walk into Cole's camp, You won't walk out. Maybe not, Jonah said. But somebody's got to stand between him and that bridge. And between you and him, you ain't sacrificing yourself for me, Rafe snapped. Ain't worth it. This ain't about worth, Jonah said quietly. It's about who can do what. I show up at that train. I'm a stranger with a badge and a story. You show up wild-eyed and shouting and they'll hit the brakes before they think. Fear's faster than reason. Rafe shook his head hard. No, Raf, Jonah said. Every step you took with Banner brought you here. You want to start stepping the other way, this is where you start. You ride to that train. You don't look back. You hear gunfire. You keep riding. That's the only way this works. Rafe's throat worked. Dust streaked his face. Damn you, he whispered. Too late, Jonah said, almost smiling. They swapped horses. For a heartbeat, they just stared at each other. If you get close enough to take a shot at Cole, Rafe said, don't miss. I'll do what needs doing, Jonah said. So do you. Rafe kicked the bay into a lope and went north along the ridge, dust boiling under the horses' hooves. Jonah watched him until he disappeared over a rise. Then he turned the sorrel toward the line of cottonwoods. Banner's men had made themselves comfortable around the spring. 7 of them, by Jonah's quick count. Guns always in easy reach. A crate sat under a tarp near the water, stenciled with a mining company's name that didn't belong this far west. Cole Banner stood near the edge of the bowl, hat back, one boot on a rock. He was younger than Jonah expected, with a sharp, hungry face that might have been handsome if not for the hardness baked into it. Conversation died when Jonah rode in. He lifted both hands from the reins. Afternoon, he said. Water looked too good to pass. You're either lost or stupid, friend, Banner said. Riding into a camp like this with your hands away from your gun. Third kind, Jonah said. Man with business, Banner nodded to one of his men. They stripped Jonah of his revolver and rifle, checked his boots for blades. Someone plucked the worn badge from his vest and held it up. Lawman, the man said. Dry Creek, Banner guessed. You're the one who pulled my boy out from under that horse. Jonah Hale, Jonah said. Deputy, sometimes Sawbones. Banner's mouth thinned. You went to a lot of trouble to fix a problem I left laying, he said. What do you want, Hale? You come drag me back in his place? No jail in the territory big enough to hold your ego, far as I can see, Jonah said. I came to talk about the trestle. That got his full attention. The easy amusement drained from Banner's face. You know a lot of things you shouldn't, he said. My men get chatty on you. Your boy did, Jonah said. He told us about Sable Draw. About the dynamite. About the troop train. Murmurs stirred around the spring. A couple of the men shifted, hands nearer their guns. Banner's eyes went cold. Rafa Vega always was soft, he said. Should Vave left him in that ravine? Maybe, Jonah said. But you didn't. Now you got a choice. You walk away from that trestle. Leave the powder in the crate. Ride for the border and disappear. You do that, maybe the railroad chalks this place up as bandit country and moves the line. You bring that bridge down under a train full of soldiers, they'll hunt you with everything they've got. So you're here to save me? Banner asked lightly. That's neighborly. I'm here to keep 100 families from getting telegrams about sons who never made it west, Jonah said. What happens to you is extra. Banner studied him. You think men like you and me live in the same world, he said finally. You think there's still rules. Justice. Scales to balance. There ain't. There's power, and there's who's under it. Railroad rolls over whoever's in the way. Army burns out whoever's near the wrong waterhole. I'm just giving aim a taste of their own medicine. Medicine doesn't ask who it kills, Jonah said. Justice ought to. You throw a lot of pretty words at a man you rode in unarmed to meet, Banner said. He nodded once. Two of his men stepped in, rifles nudging Jonah toward the rocks. Take him up, Tot. Let him watch his mercy work when that train hits the ravine. They shoved Jonah up the slope to a ledge overlooking Sable Draw. From there he could see the trestle striding the gap, men and small moving under its belly. The crate of dynamite huddled in the shadow of a support beam. The scarred man who'd taken Jonah's badge prodded him to his knees. Say a prayer if you like, he said. Preacher man like you got plenty, I wager. Jonah looked east. The rail line disappeared into a shimmer of heat. No smoke yet. He could hear, though, under the wind and his own pulse, the faintest tremor deep in the iron rails. The world getting ready. You boys ever handled dynamite before? He asked. The younger outlaw frowned. What kind of question's that? Honest one, Jonah said. Powder sweats in this heat. Fuses burn faster than you think. You sure you gave yourselves enough time to get clear? They glanced at each other just long enough. Jonah moved. He lunged sideways, throwing his weight into the younger man's knees. The rifle barked, shot sparking off rock. Jonah clawed at the barrel, wrenching it free as they both went down. The scarred man yanked his gun, but Jonah fired first. The recoil staggered him. The outlaw dropped, shock written clear on his face as he folded. The younger man scrambled up, panic wild in his eyes. He grabbed for his fallen rifle. Jonah swung his, butt first, catching the outlaw across the temple. The man crumpled boneless. For a breath the world narrowed to the taste of dust and the burn of torn muscles. Jonah forced himself up. Below, shouts rose as Banner's men pointed and scattered. He didn't have long. He half stumbled, half slid down the slope toward the trestle, every jolt sending a white flare of pain up his spine. Someone fired from the rocks. Stone splintered near his hand. Back from that crate, he shouted when he hit the ground by the support beams. You shoot and I go down on top of it. You really want to gamble on where the sparks land. Banner's voice knifed through the confusion. Hold, he barked. Let him talk himself into his grave. He strode into the trestle's shadow, gun low but ready. Above, the rails hummed faintly now. Jonah didn't look east, but he knew what he'd see. A smear of smoke on the horizon, growing. You are a stubborn man, Hale, Banner said. You bled for a boy who'll never see daylight outside a cell, and now you'll die for soldiers who'd just as soon run you off this land. Maybe, Jonah said. But at least I'll die knowing which side I was on. That badge? Banner sneered. The side that doesn't push men into a hole just to prove it can, Jonah said. Banner flicked his gun slightly, impatience in the movement. You think blowing yourself up under that trestle's gonna change anything? I think it keeps your justice from hitting the wrong target, Jonah said. He bent and ripped the lid off the crate. Sticks of dynamite lay packed in straw, some crusted with sweat. You strike that match, and I put a bullet in your head before you finish, Banner said. You put a bullet in me, my hand falls wherever it falls, Jonah said. You really want to make that bet standing on this much powder? Banner's men shifted, suddenly very aware of where their boots were. You don't have to do this, Banner said, a hint of something like respect creeping in despite himself. Neither do you, Jonah said. You walk away now. Maybe you'll live long enough to regret some of what you've done. That's the difference between us, Banner said. I don't regret. I pay back. The sound from the east grew, a low drum roll coming through the rails. Jonah took out his match case. His hand shook. Last chance, Banner said. Jonah thought of the ravine, of the 6 men already dead there, of Rafe riding hard along the ridge, of Royce and his tired eyes, of Caldwell with the rope and the preacher with shaking hands. Justice without mercy is just vengeance in a nicer coat, he said. I've seen enough of both. He struck the match. Zulfur flared green-white. Banner's gun came up. Jonah touched the flame to the nearest fuse. Shoot him! Somebody screamed. The world became noise. Something smashed into Jonah's chest, tearing the breath from him. He hit the ground. The fuse hissed, spark racing. One of Banner's men dove for it, pinching the burning line between his fingers. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the spark that had dropped into the crate straw found what it had been looking for. Light and sound slammed through the ravine. Heat rolled in a solid wave. Jonah felt himself lifted and thrown. For a moment, there was no up or down, just brightness. When it faded, he lay half under a splintered support, the trestle groaning overhead but still standing. Smoke stung his eyes. His ears rang. Every breath felt wrong, as if something important had broken loose inside. Shapes moved in the haze. Some got up. Some didn't. The crate was just a blackened smear. Banner lay twisted nearby, chest open and still. Boots skidded down the slope. Someone dropped to their knees beside Jonah. Jonah! Rafe's voice broke on his name. Jonah blinked up at him. The boy's face swam in and out of focus, streaked with soot and dust. You get that train stopped? Jonah asked. Rafe nodded, breath hitching. Yeah, he said. Engineers saw me, damn near jumped out of their skins. They're a mile back with half the army. They're coming. Good, Jonah whispered. Good. Rafe's gaze raced over him, taking in the blood spreading across Jonah's shirt, the way his chest hitched shallow. Dock on that train, Can. Some holes don't close, Jonah said. Talking took effort. Each word scraped. They're gonna blame me, Rafe said hoarsely. Railroad.ish. Army.id. Town. All of M. They see Banner's brand on me and that's all. You tell M the truth, Jonah said. Every piece. Trestle. Dynamite. Banner. Me. You'll let him decide, but you don't lie. You hear? Rafe's hands tightened on his shoulder. They'll hang me anyway. Maybe, Jonah said. His vision tunneled, the sky narrowing to a bright circle. Maybe they don't. Men can surprise you. Sometimes they surprise themselves. Rafe's eyes shone wet. Why'd you do it? He asked. You didn't even know me. Jonah thought about that for a long moment. About the boy, under the horse, the rope in the cottonwood, the way fear had stunk up the jail. About the line he told Rafe was hard to see some days. Man's got to pick a side, he said at last. Sooner or later. Mercy or the rope. I picked. Cost is the cost. Rafe bowed his head, shoulders shaking. Don't leave, he whispered. Jonah wanted to say he'd try, but he'd watched enough men die to recognize the place he'd reached. Mercy ain't weakness, he managed. Remember that. Boots thundered on the slope above. Soldiers shouting, ropes thrown, orders cracking. The world filled with the noise of men arriving too late, and still in time. Jonah let the sound wash over him. It faded like a train's rumble as it passes and is gone. His last sight was Rafe's face, young and old at once, and the trestle still standing against the sky. Dry Creek remembered Jonah Hale in pieces. Some remembered the quiet man who stitched up bullet holes and set broken bones without asking too many questions. Others remembered the fool who walked a wounded outlaw out of a ravine instead of letting the desert have him. Caldwell remembered standing in the jail doorway with a rope and nearly stepping over a line he could never have walked back from. The story of Sable Draw came back with the soldiers. Of dynamite that blew under the trestle before the train reached it. Of an outlaw gang broken to scraps. Of one deputy who went under with the blast and didn't come out again. Rafe Vega went east in chains. The army captain and Royce both wrote letters. The railroad grudgingly admitted somebody had saved them a fortune in wood and iron and men. In the end, a judge gave Rafe 5 years in a stone place, back where the maps were crowded and the sky stayed small. He had time enough to roll Jonah's last words around in his head until they wore grooves. When he stepped off the train in Dry Creek again, the town had grown. New storefronts, taller hotel, telegraph wires stitched overhead. The wind still felt the same. Dust and wood smoke and coffee. Royce waited on the platform, older, hat in his hands. Caldwell stood a step behind, eyes wary. Ref's shoulders had broadened in 5 years. The hardness in his face had settled different. He carried a folded paper in one pocket, his pardon, and something heavier in the other. Jonah's badge, edges worn smooth from his thumb. They walked up the hill to the cemetery almost without speaking. Jonah's grave sat under a leaning juniper, marker simple. His name, a pair of dates, 3 words. He stood anyway. Rafe knelt and traced the letters. "You were right," he said quietly. "They wanted to hang me. Railroad men buying for it. Some of the army, too. But the captain wouldn't have it. Said if they hung the one man who'd warned, and it made him look worse than the outlaws. Judge gave me years instead of a rope." He took the badge from his pocket. "I carried this all that time," he said. "Figured if you were going to bleed for the chance I might be better than what I was, I ought to try." He set the badge at the base of the marker, metal dull against the dry earth. "I ain't a lawman," he said. "Maybe I never will be. But I'm done helping men like Cole Banner." "Figure that's a start." Footsteps crunched behind him. Caldwell cleared his throat. "You walking straight now?" the cattleman asked. Rafe stood. "Far as I can manage," he said. Caldwell's hat twisted in his hand. "I was wrong," he said abruptly. "About the rope. About you. Took me too long to own it. Rafe could have made him pay for that. He didn't. You were scared," he said instead. "Scared men do stupid things. Jonah saw that," Caldwell said. Cost him either way," Rafe said. "Difference is what it bought." Caldwell nodded once. "Town set up a fund when the railroad paid out," he said. "In Jonah's name. We've been using it to patch roofs and build a bridge or two. Never seemed like enough. Figured maybe it could help a man he died protecting get a decent start." Rafe blinked. "You're offering me money?" "Loan," Caldwell said. "Stake on a freight string, maybe. Or a share in the livery, if you've got more patience than sense." Jonah believed in second chances. "Seems wrong if we don't offer you one." Rafe thought of the badge at the grave, of Jonah under the trestle with a match in his hand. Mercy ain't weakness. Reckon I'll take you up on that, he said. If only to see if this town can stand me walking around honest. Caldwell huffed something that might have been a laugh. We survived the railroad, he said. We'll manage you. He left them there. Rafe stayed a little longer, listening to the juniper whisper in the wind. It sounded, if he let his mind go loose, like train wheels far off, like river water over stone, like the hush before a man makes a choice he can't walk back from. When he finally turned toward town, the sky over Dry Creek was breaking open, light spilling hard and bright through the clouds. Justice, he thought, wasn't the rope or the bullet. It was what a man did with the chance somebody else bled to give him. He figured he'd spend the rest of his days trying to be worth the price.